Okay, welcome to the Safe Space Podcast, and a little bit different setting this morning because we're back in our warehouse area, the prep area. So this is where all our safes come through. Before they go out, we unbox everything. Just double check, like to go through and make sure everything is exactly how it should be before it goes out to our customers. And the other thing you'll see is we've got our master safe technician, Jeff Snope, with us.
My name is Jeff.
A little bit of history with Jeff is a master certified ASE technician.
Yep.
Was. So he came from the car industry, has always been a wrencher and anything that has to do with motors, electronics, mechanical things. Jeff's always been super interested and knowledgeable. And so about over 17 years ago, he came over to be our master safe technician. Family friends, grew up with our family. My dad was best friends with his dad. So a lot of history here and a lot of trust. So today we're going to be talking about locks, and really I guess what's kind of pushing this is two big changes and updates, some of which we've talked about before, which was Raspberry Pi, which Raspberry Pi is actually one of Jeff's favorite, but we're not talking about the kind you eat. We're actually going to talk about, yes it is. I'll concede to that. We're talking about basically back in, I think the DEFCON conference was in August, down in Las Vegas.
So, right.
So it's the annual hackers conference, and they did a demo featuring how they could bypass into certain models of SECURAM locks. I would say for the most part, it had a resounding thud. Like, it wasn't a big deal as far as the announcement. There didn't see a lot of interest in it overall. Now, with that being said, with our customer base, we are consistently and still to this day getting questions and calls about it, basically how it affects them, how people can protect against it. Do you want me to recap basically what they went over? Or
Go through it.
So at this hackers conference, they basically showed with a little Raspberry Pi, which is a handheld, tiny. They make them, I think, slightly smaller than a cell phone or a little bit bigger, but it is a small computer and some software and some knowledge created to where they could plug this tool into a port that's accessed from the outside of certain models of SECURAM locks and gain entry. It was presented as a big deal, but I guess why it wasn't a surprise to safe technicians and manufacturers is pretty much every single electronic lock on the market has a backdoor. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and we've been using this for years. That's the Lockmaster's little black box. So, they were doing something that previous renditions of the ProLogic years ago, via that connector port in the back of the keypad, up to the 2016 point, that box would open that lock, and SECURAM changed it.
Yeah, so SECURAM changed it, and then basically the hackers found a new way into
They rewrote the module. So this box comes with these little modules, and as they get outdated, right, like the Lagarde module initially came out with this guy, then they came out with that guy whenever they got updated. There's one in there for S&G for the change when they updated, but as they developed things for the black box, the manufacturers changed the locks, and then black box doesn't work until a new module comes out.
So, kind of like with computer software, locks are no difference. Like, you are always getting updates, you're always getting hackered.
Yeah, Windows 10 goes obsolete, and then you get 11.
Yeah. So the safe industry is really no different. Now, someone that has a SECURAM lock, from what I understand, there is no firmware update that SECURAM's doing, correct?
Correct. No firmware update, but there's definitely ways to disable the lock. So what you can do is disable the recovery system in it. That's in the supercode menu, which is like the 00 identifier menu. You can change the encryption key set, and then you can actually put super glue with baking powder on the pin connectors in the backside of the keypad that they were inserting a Raspberry Pi module into, and basically block ports. And that stuff is so tough that if you try to scratch it off, you will destroy the entire area.
Yeah, so the tool that they used actually has to be plugged into the safe, but then there's also another way of bypass, which is through the recovery code. That can also be disabled.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. You can basically make everything they were doing not able to be possible by changing those three things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest manufacturer that this probably affected was Liberty, because, I mean,
like they were being picked on.
Well, the majority of the industry uses SECURAM locks.
They do.
But the overwhelming majority use actually a cheaper model, which this isn't really affected by.
Right. So, I mean, the defeats would be there for the lower level models if anybody focused long enough on. There's plenty of locks, like the ESL 10. You just unplug the keypad on this, right? Cable comes out of it, and this cable is left hanging out the front of the safe. There is a black box module that plugs into that, which is this guy right here. And you run the black box on it and you can get it open in 15 minutes. There's a built-in timer in the black box that basically makes you wait that long, but it's capable of doing it instantly in a minute time.
And I guess one of the things that's, to be noted is this is something that is available to
only us.
Yeah, locksmiths only. Now, with that being said, there is a black market for everything. Something like this.
Those guys basically
created
that themselves.
Yeah.
And this box was developed by software engineers in Silicon Valley. There wasn't a guy in Lockmasters that made the software program in the box to do this. That was developed by guys just like these gentlemen that figured out that act with Pro Logic, same way that they built Blackhawks.
Yeah. Some of the guys that hacked into the Pro Logic, had the stance of, hey, there should never be a backdoor to take. And the reason this exists, the quote-unquote backdoor, and actually before I get too far into this, when people talk about a backdoor code or master code, there is no master code that applies to all of a manufacturer's lock.
Correct.
They're individual codes, and really it's a manager code. Yeah. So depending on, I guess these codes exist for a couple reasons. I think the biggest reason they exist is, Liberty, for example, about 4,000 to 5,000 times a year gets calls because someone forgot the combination to their safe.
Yeah, this store gets 2 or 3 calls every day.
Yeah,
because of lost combinations to safes.
Yeah, so basically it creates, well, first off, a lot of your larger reputable manufacturers are going to offer a warranty on the lock. So an extended warranty, I mean, everything from a year to 5 years to a lifetime.
It's well worth the money too.
Yeah. So any manufacturer that's offering a warranty on their lock and they're shipping it out, one of the baselines they have to be able to prove when a customer calls with a lock issue is, did they just forget their combination? Because the overwhelming majority of calls that we get, the issue is going to be, there's nothing wrong with this lock. 9 times out of 10, somebody forgot the combination. And then the second thing is dead batteries. So, usually when we're dealing with lock issues, it has nothing to do with the lock. It has to do with user and batteries.
Yeah, and a lot of times people are just doing the dialing sequence wrong. A lot of times they're just moving the position of a number within the code to the wrong spot. So yeah, the forgetting the code thing is a big deal.
Yeah, so basically it gives customers an affordable way to gain access back to their safe. Now, with recent events,
jump through a lot of hoops to do.
Right, and with recent events, this has brought, I think, more into the light of manufacturers do have this ability, right? It's something that for decades, consumers have asked us, hey, can you wipe out what the factory stores? And it's never been an issue.
Yeah, we're happy to do it.
Yeah, it's just, I'd say more so than ever, there's been some transparency brought to the issue, so more people are asking about it. But it can definitely be done. So
I mean, we can give you your super code and your pro logic.
Yeah.
You can program everything that you want, retain the code yourself after you change it. Like,
But if you lock yourself out, you're on your own.
like there's no.
Yeah. There is no way to bypass it at a certain point besides physically disabling the lock with your drills and scopes and getting back into it. So that's the first reason. It's just people losing the combinations, being able to warranty and cover that. Second reason, you're going to have multiple codes, different codes like super codes, master codes, manager codes, is commercial settings where you have multiple people gaining access into the safe. Yeah. So for example, in a typical retail location, the store owner, the store manager will have a manager code or the master code. Mm-hmm. And then below that, you'll have user code. So as employees cycle in and out or lose their
codes,
I should say,
and they can't create themselves.
You get rid of someone, you get
in the lock that you don't know about also.
Right. You have to get that done through the manager code. So it allows, as employees cycle in and out, you don't have to change everybody's code.
Yeah.
In a commercial setting, if you have a mechanical dowel lock, there is only one code.
That's it.
There is no bypass. There is no master code for these. They just have one code to them.
Yeah. Now, I think that the other thing was with the Liberty FBI deal. The lock that was actually opened in that whole thing was mechanical lock.
Yeah, which is funny because when the guys at the DEFCON conference, they said one of the things where they prompted, hey, how were they able to gain access to this lock?
They didn't actually say that like it was an electronic lock necessarily. But they indicated.
Well, everybody thought it was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was a mechanical dial lock still set at the factory code.
And there's no like other dial code that gets you in. It's literally the one code to get in.
Correct. Let's see here.
I think that a bunch of the locks on this table, there's a possibility that black box modules can be created for any of the stuff here. There's popular locks that are used on the market now, like the S&G Titan, Sergeant Greenleaf 6120, the American Security ESL5, the Lagarde swing bolts. There's a bunch of locks that currently have black box modules that work for them. And as we go on later into the years, SECURAM changed that initial ProLogic module in 2016. So from 2016 to 2025, there's a run of locks that you can't use the black box module on, but they might develop one now for that era of lock, just like they would since the S&G Titan got changed in 2018.
Yeah.
They'll wait for a 9-10 year block and say, okay, we're going to make a new module for this.
Well, even without those modules, there's ways to get into these without drilling that involve essentially hacking or hacking the lock. So
I mean, there's a couple really popular commercial locks out on the market that my good friend Adam Lewis has figured out how to get into with a laptop, and there's not really anybody else I know of that's doing that.
Yeah. Have we heard or seen any say? So, and you're on the forums and see what guys are doing across the nation. Have you come across anybody getting their safe breached in this way? Not by professional, but
no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we recently did that little reel where Mason was there for a safe with a dial lock in the guy's house that had a screwdriver hanging out the front of it. And this is a little bit different scenario in the sense of like, it wasn't an electronic lock that got figured out, but it was very obvious when we got there that somebody had opened safe with the mechanical combination and then did a bunch of damage to try to cover up that they were in there.
Right.
And that is most of the time what happens. Somebody discovers your code, figures it out, gets into the lock. They might damage it to make it look like we did something to it, but I haven't forensically been able to locate or knock down anything to an actual breach with a device.
So, yeah, one of the biggest problems is people don't know where to keep their code. I've never written my codes down. They're just all up here.
Right.
What would you recommend somebody does? what is a great way, or what is a good way to secure your combination and actually have it accessible? Because even me, I know this is working for now, but 30 years from now, no promises. I don't know
that changes.
if I'm going to be able to access that code.
I've got some customers that I've been in their homes several times now at this point, and I've taken a couple different approaches. One of the approaches with code storage was to put it in another safe on site, and that safe was gained access by biometric lock.
So fingerprint.
Yes, SECURAM scan logic. So as long as you got your finger, you get in, and no, you can't cut somebody's finger off and have it work. It doesn't work when they're dead because it's got to have the capacity of resistance of their blood in it. I've had where I've told people to write down the code on top of like one of those sliding closet doors that sits on a track, or on top of a door in the house that doesn't have a lock on it that won't ever risk being like kicked in if it's locked. So that way the door doesn't get knocked down, you see the code on top of it, but they can get on top of a chair and look at the code. Giving it to family members and keeping an entirely different location, but obviously you have to trust and ask your imminent
Lawyers.
Yeah, safety deposit boxes, see if you put them in there.
Which are getting harder and harder to find.
So I think that there's a couple different options, and a lot of times it comes down to the situation that might be, kind of a unique, like, oh, hey, write it on the bottom of this thing and underneath the sink on a panel that comes out type of thing, depending on what I'm looking around the house and seeing. But you also got to remember where you put it.
There's that. And, I've had people, take doors off the hinges and write on that window side of a door. But the problem is if you start forgetting stuff, you're going to figure your code, and you're also going to forget where that code is. I mean, that's why I think biometrics
it's becoming more popular.
I was going to say the future, just because all you have to remember to do is to put that finger and you're going to be good to go.
And a lot of people think that it just takes, the one fingerprint. The locks typically take 3 codes right now, 15 fingerprints. So that's 5 fingerprint per code. Typically we have like the main user, if they're just using one code, do like these 2 fingers and this one. And then the spouse will do like 2 pointer fingers. So that if you get a scratch or a scar or something on one finger, the other 2 still work, or you got another alternate way to get in. And that lock still has a keypad.
So go back to the SECURAM and the Raspberry Pi incident, what we call it.
The DEFCONings.
Yeah. We still use that lock. I think
we actually ordered 220 of them right after that.
Yeah, it's still a really high quality popular lock, and I think what people the decision you have to make is, okay, as we discussed, pretty much all these are vulnerable to hacking.
Yeah, I mean, we just could find a way if we have the time.
Yeah, so is that really realistic? Well, from what we've seen, personally within our region, and what happening across the country, no, it's not a big threat. So I want to be able to sell somebody a reliable lock. I don't want simple ways of bypass. We hate the key bypass non-UL listed locks just because there's so many simple, basic ways to get into them.
Yeah.
So if I can, I feel comfortable with the Pro Logic because I want reliability. Yeah, that's the most important thing to me. I think if a professional that has the ability to hack the lock shows up, really is more likely to drill it.
What? Like, you're not going to keep me out.
So
if I show up to open the safe.
Yeah. So I'm more concerned about, is the lock quality and is it reliable? And the SECURAM Pro Logic to me is still one of the best, most reliable locks out there.
I think that I've been keeping tabs on the numbers since we started using it in 2018, and I know for a fact it's the most reliable lock that we've ever used in its store.
Yeah.
And the locks keep getting better and better. The second best is that S&G Titan. That's a solid lock. The big deficiency on that one is keypad failures, but it's pretty rare for the lock body itself to go out.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to get more comments about people scoffing at Pro lock recommendations, which is it's fine, totally, but I never get a response back of, that lock sucks, this is what you should be using.
And then SECURAM changed the new Pro Logic. Like, it's already out. I've already installed one. It showed up with the recovery mode disabled. the encryption key was not active in it, and they changed the circuit board and the keypad so you can't hook Raspberry Pi to it.
You can't plug that port is no longer that port. Oh, it's okay, so it's there, it's not active.
Yeah, so I already installed one, came with directions where if you, if your customer wants the recovery system back on and the encryption system back on, here's how to turn it on, but it's turned off when you pull it out of the box. Ironically enough, the customer I installed that for wanted it turned back on.
Oh, most people do. So even with Liberty, when they announced, here's this form, if you want everything wiped out, of course you lose your lock warranty. You didn't lose a safe warranty, but you lose a lock warranty. Here's how to do it. When the fallout happened a couple years ago, there was like a little blip increase of people that signed up to do it, but then after that it fell flat. Most consumers want to have that ability to get back into their safe.
I bet I fielded roughly about 400 phone calls, and that turned into 20 actual people like having me come out and disable stuff. So once people really understood what was going on, how hard it actually is to get the combination to the factory now, and there was a lot of companies that said hey, we never done that, and we knew for a fact that they used to do that.
So when the fallout happened, you actually would go to manufacturers, and that recovery page was disabled on their website.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I had a manufacturer tell me they would give me a backdoor code, right? Said that they wiped out their database, wasn't active anymore. Sent me a warranty service call 3 months later and gave me the backdoor code for the warranty service call as part of the standard information I gave me.
Right.
So they were still keeping the codes.
Yep. So it was an opportunity, not to say that Liberty Disk did everything right in that situation. They did not, but
they pioneered what should be done now.
Right. And then moving forward, when you go on their website, they probably have more transparency than they have brand.
I mean,
unfortunately, but everybody kind of waited to see, okay, Liberty, for a domestic manufacturer, right? They are the Steve, that's the one. They're the big ones. So everybody was kind of waiting to see what Liberty did, and then followed
the policy afterwards. Yeah. And unfortunately, they just had to be guinea pigs for the whole situation. So they've got it down to a science now, and even for me to get codes from this factory, there's extra hoops that I've got to jump through, and I have to put in written requests, so I have to think about things ahead of time if I want to be in a remote area where there's no coverage for doing emails or any that kind of stuff. So it's definitely more stringent than it used to be.
So moving away from SECURAM, Liberty brought in a new lock for their high end, which would be the Dormakaba 702D. So very similar. It's a display lock.
Yeah, it's got a screen on it.
Yeah,
it's basically Kaba is Lagarde, so there are older locks that are phased out now that this lock took over for. This is one of their modules there for the black box, and I'm sure within enough time they're going to have black box modules for the new one. I am positive that the factory is, they're still keeping codes on file in case the customer loses it for the Kaba, for a customer to gain access to it with constant verification procedures. So it's not any different than what it used to be. Currently, as I know right now, there's not anything more than a drilling mechanical defeat to that lock. But as things go on here and it gets more popular, people are going to build stuff for it. It's just what I understand.
Yeah. What do we know about that lock? It's not very old.
No, kind of released in 2020. There's a lot of guys claiming that it's been being used in the field since then, but I came across the first one in the field, ironically enough, 2 weeks ago, and I was there replacing it because they were having issues with it. You've got to watch it with brand new electronic lock products and dialogue products, for even that matter, in the safe industry. We like to see a period of time where there's minimal issues before we kind of decide to bring something in and adopt it. We've heard the whole, this is the next generation, this is the best thing, and we get 3-4 years into something, it's like, this has got to be one of the worst locks we've ever dealt with. So I'm pretty apprehensive right now. We're going to be basically, I think we're looking at 2 years of real world installation being used by some of the manufacturers with that lock at this point. So we'll know in probably another 2 or 3 years how really good it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the way it looks. So I think as far as it looks,
it's a installation of that is not that cool.
Yeah. I mean, customer doesn't have to really concern themselves with that.
They don't, but as from a safe standpoint, not very fun.
If, you know, what's the most secure lock? And actually, I think I know what you're going to say, and I think you hate this lock.
Electronic lock wise?
Yeah.
It's the X10.
Yeah, so that's a government lock. You'll see it on GSA containers.
It was an interesting history.
And it doesn't have these threats open to it, right? The bypasses. There is no recovery mode for it.
Not that anybody has tried to develop yet.
Right. So when it comes to getting into one of those locks, you're pretty much always going to drill it.
Yeah, and it's a pretty tough drill.
Okay, and then what's the cost of that lock?
Typically in the retail world, you're looking just for the parts about $2,500 to $3,000, and then installation on top of that, which is a fraction of that cost, but it's still a lot more to install one because of the time it takes, how the attention to detail has to be paid to put an umbrella logic on. I can install this on a Liberty safe, like with one of the new 3 screw door panels in like 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, cost.
This real world price is going to be like $180 to $209
Plus installation fees.
Plus installation fees, which is usually a couple $100.
Yeah, so huge difference there. Okay, with an X10, what do you get? I don't think reliability is necessarily...
That's got a generator in it, so as you dial up the front, the lock powers up, and then you basically dial each direction to the number the same way you would with a dial combination lock. It doesn't have to be as precise, so you can accidentally patch the number, like come back or ring. And then it electronically opens inside, and you rotate to the right, and it retracts the bolt. It's kind of the same idea as the 702 redundant that's being used currently at Fort Knox, with the dial combo down low and electronic up top. You punch in the code up top and then turn the dial to basically retract.
Or kind of like a direct drive.
Yeah,
those are mechanical lead. Instead of a motor or a solenoid that releases and the mechanism pushes the lock out of the way, there's a mechanical leak that you're lifting it up. What is reliability like those at? Are they... I mean, for the cost, are you getting something that...
The base is pretty frustrated with that lock.
Yeah.
So it's gone from the X07 to the X08 to the X9 and now to the X10. And I get it. Quite a few calls to go out to the face and open up.
But the government has to use these.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've installed some...
Yeah.
But it's not something we really recommend. And that you're getting...
It definitely, if you're in a residential setting and you're looking at that lock, most of the time the people that are going with that lock don't have the container to kind of support
to justify it.
Yeah, to keep us out.
Okay, well, anything else to add?
I think we covered quite a bit there.
Okay, well, hey, we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, mention them below. We'll see you next time.